I'm Justin Lesko, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and a law enforcement officer.
Today on the show, we are talking to a living legend of the sport. He was a member of the Dirty Dozen, the first 12 non-Brazilian black belts.
He was actually the first American to submit a Brazilian in competition, and he was also the first American to compete at the World Championships in Brazil.
He coined the term combat base, and he's known for his golden rules of grappling.
I actually have a few golden rules of grappling as well. Well, actually, just golden rules, but I have a few golden rules. Do you want to hear them? You want to know what they are?
I think I could venture a guess, but go ahead.
All right, well, first golden rule is never zip your pants up in the dark. There you go. Second golden rule is never look like shit when you're wearing jiu-jitsu clothes. And third is never pay full price for anything. That makes me sound cheap. I'm not cheap, but you get what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, and you are very lucky because our show can actually help you out with both of those rules. If you visit epicrollbjj.com and use the coupon code podcast15, you can take 15% off the best jiu-jitsu apparel around.
So Epic Roll BJJ has everything you need, from hoodies to t-shirts to gis to rash guards to shorts. The list goes on and on. Anything that you need, they got you covered. You can check them out on Instagram at epicrollbjj, or you can go to their website, epicrollbjj.com.
Epic Roll will definitely help you with one of your rules because all of their stuff looks great. And the code podcast15 will help you with the other rule because we're getting you an awesome discount. I thought your rules were going to be something like never fight Gordon Ryan without someone to help, or don't roll with Justin because he'll leg lock me.
Well, how about we talk to somebody who can actually tap me and doesn't live in a fantasy world like you? Please welcome to the show, Chris Haueter.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Like Mike said, we were very, very excited that you were willing to come on and chat with us.
That's fine. I'm excited. Consider me to be on the witness stand.
Well, I don't know if you want that. Mike is a law enforcement officer, so he probably is a trained investigator, so we won't grill you too hard.
Years ago, 20 years ago, I was a cop, so I do understand that job. And yes, I'm ready to be on the witness stand. Go ahead and interrogate me, and I know when and where and how to take the fifth.
There you go.
The first thing we always ask people when they come on the show is how they got involved in jiu-jitsu. And I know most of our audience is going to be familiar with your backstory, but in case anyone has been living under a rock and does not know who you are, if you could just let us know how you came to find jiu-jitsu.
I'm going to give the shortest version of my origin story. Only because it is true. I have answered this so many times. And as anyone in law of any kind knows, when the witness keeps being asked the same story, eventually what you are remembering is your version of the story instead of the story. So with that being said, the shortest version of is I got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I was attempting to return to wrestling at the ripe old age of 23 or 4. And when I went into the wrestling room, the Aikido club was having their club, and I knew the Aikido instructor, and I saw them grappling, and I got arm lock and choked, and I said, "Hey, Mitz Yamashita, I want to do Aikido." And he said, "This isn't Aikido. This is Jiu-Jitsu, and it's a special kind, and it's called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm not allowed to actually instruct it. But here's the guy who can." And within a week, I was over in Horion's garage, and I was hooked before I even showed up to my first class. I knew, as a lifelong seeker of reality-based martial arts, I knew I hit the gold mine.
Well, like I said, I'm sure most people listening have heard at least one version of you tell that story before, but we have to cover our bases in case anyone is new to the sport. And obviously, everyone listens to our show the first day they sign up for jiu-jitsu, so it's important to lay the base. But
And I got to add this. So last week, Mitz Yamashita passed away, and he was old, and I'm not sure what he passed away from, and not that that matters, but Mitz was one of those guys that came from a very classical style that was willing to learn things from other styles, a very open-minded Aikido guy, which, as you guys know, is pretty rare, not only in martial arts, but rare among humans to actually explore other concepts and ideas, especially when one's ego is attached to whatever it is they're holding on to. As you know, from being a cop, agencies and individual cops are very resistant to try a new thing. All humans are.
I think a lot of that's ego driven. You know, it just what, you know, for whatever reason, law enforcement is, you know, tends to be, you know, filled with these alpha personalities, and with that comes the, you know, the idea that, you know, they're doing things right and they don't really like to be told when they're doing things wrong. And
I didn't want to say that, especially in this current climate. I didn't want to say that, but yes, I think that is a clear aspect. A couple of my, I'm not going to call them good friends, but students of mine on and off over the years, either I'm their grand coach or one of my guys is their actual coach. They frequently send me little clips of either good arrests or bad arrests, and they often will ask my opinion, and others too. And I think that in this current climate, where sadly everything is so polarized, and everything, you almost have to like choose a team. It's almost like if you say I'm on a blue team, it means you're somehow against cops. And if you say you're on the red team, it means you're somehow a racist. And I think that climate is very bad.
We've talked about it on here too. We've because I went to the GST course. I went to GST level 1 and level 2. I don't know if you're familiar with their instructors, but the one, Ivandro Nunez, he actually was one of our first guests on this show. So he taught both of the GSTs that I went to. And anyone who's heard this show and heard us talk about it, I think it's something that all cops should get into. I think that all cops should be trained in jiu-jitsu. I think it's an invaluable resource for law enforcement officers out there. Like, I see these videos out there where people are questioning the arrest tactics of police officers and everything. And, you know, I'd be lying if I say I don't look at some of these videos and I'm like, jiu-jitsu could have definitely made a difference in this.
You know, I'm not going to jump into any statistics or any of that because I don't know all of them. I only know from my experience and what little I have read on statistics. And my experience is 20 years old now, but the job hasn't changed that much. And I think there's a lot of reasons why our current culture involving everybody's opinion on arrest and control and all that has changed so much. And I'm going to give you one little story I will give. And so when I was probably on for maybe 3 months, and I was not a cop a long time, and there's a big reason why. But I was a regular cop for a year and a reserve for a year afterward. It was in a period of my life where I was having let's just say, drinking and substance abuse problems, not as a result of the job, but other things. They tried really hard to help me and hang on, and I resigned. But anyhow, there was an event where there was one of the kind of local known cons running around who was a huge prison yoked up gangster, a white guy who was in a Latino gang, and he had a parole hold on him. And of course, because I was the Jiu Jitsu guy, they're like, Haueter, we want you to arrest this guy. And this dude was yoked up, and he had a reputation. He was known as a guy who would take the guns from cops and throw them, which of course, if he takes a cop's gun, I mean, that's like one other thing. And basically, I tricked him into handcuffs. And they were all so mad I tricked him into handcuffs because, of course, they want to see me put my hands on the guy in a fight. And I didn't want to do it. And I was so glad I tricked him into handcuffs. And I tricked him by lying. And I told him that all we got to do is we got a bad mugshot because these new computers and all this stuff, we just have to get your picture. All we got to do is bring you down, get your picture, and we're cutting you loose. And he's like, well, I can't go back to the joint, man, because, there's a green light on me. I can't go back to the joint. And I'm like, no, dude, there's no way you're going back to the joint. Are you kidding? LA County Jail's full. No one's taking anyone. I just need your picture. And he's like, well, all right, I'll go to get my picture. And of course, he went to the joint. So that leads to all kinds of things. So one could say, if I were a paranoid cop, I know the next time he sees me, when he is out of the joint, he's going to have an issue with me personally and the police, because the police lied to him and stuck him in the joint. It's already setting up these sides that I think is the same thing that happens in politics. So it's like it only takes one event where you feel like a cop, right or wrong, wronged you, and it only takes one event where you're a cop who trusts a guy, which has happened with me, and he's lying and he has a gun. And then it's like, okay, they all have guns now. And if you're the bad guy, all cops are scums now. And so that's the one thing that I never hear talked about, whether it's conservative pundits, liberal pundits, and all that, is because most people don't understand the nature of the job, let alone the nuances of how humans think, and how the more under fear and duress we are, the more we kick in to our primal pattern recognition software, which is very old, antique programming, and that leads into all kinds of problems. So I completely agree. In a perfect world, every cop, before even being hired, would have to have at least a blue belt. I think that would be ideal.
Jiu-Jitsu, I feel like it instills a certain amount of confidence. So not saying that you weren't prepared to go hands-on with this guy, but you realize that there's alternative methods there. Maybe your training and everything instills that mindset in you that helps you talk him, even if you are lying to him. At the end of the day, you're avoiding a confrontation that could potentially be terrible for everyone. I think that story is a great example of it, of, maybe not utilizing jiu-jitsu, but in a way utilizing the mindset that jiu-jitsu instills in you.
I think historically right now, and we'll leave this and get back into grappling and on the mat and off of politics and off of a culture, but I think right now humankind stands at a very strange crossroads. And there's a lot of reasons why, but the world is becoming smaller and smaller.
You talked about being a police officer, 20 years ago. You were training jiu-jitsu even longer than that. As someone who wants to train jiu-jitsu for as many years as possible, do you have any advice for longevity in the sport?
Okay, so a lot of life is luck, but you can do certain things to push those odds of luck into your favor. When you are engaged in anything that has high risk of injury, the first thing you do is you accept. And I years back, my waiver I had, it said, not only am I aware that I could get gravely injured, crippled, or dead, but I will for sure sustain minor injuries and occasionally a major injury, because that's the nature of what we do. You're gonna get hurt. So the first thing you do is accept you're gonna get hurt. Then the other half is, okay, how do I minimize those injuries? You tap early, tap often. You think of everything as training. Nothing is the real thing, because you'll know if you're in the real thing. You won't have but to go, am I in a real fight right now, or am I training? You will know. And everything else is training. Everything, including IBJJF competitions and MMA. That's all training, because it's not about life and death. So as long as it's not about life and death, it's all training. It's all training. What are you training for? That's where my philosophy enters of you think street, you train sport, and you practice art. And the only thing that is quote unquote real is when it's life or death or grave injury. And everything else is art or sport.
Is that part of that system you've talked about in the past about your golden rules of grappling?
Yes. My golden rules of grappling are such that grappling can be effective in the street. Because my golden rules of grappling are, number one, you be the guy on top. Number two, when on top, you stay on top. Number three, when on a bottom, have a guard, you shall not pass. Number four, never forget rule number one, easily forgotten due to the seductive, rewarding, and lazy nature of guard.
I'm feeling personally attacked, but you far outrank me, so I'm gonna have to go with it.
It's great. Like, I feel like he's talking directly to us. We're half guard players.
I love the guard. Why do I love the guard? Because the guard neutralizes the shitty fact that you are losing, that you are on bottom. It's a way to neutralize it so effectively. You can even trick your opponent into coming on top, which is where you want to be, or submitting them. That's the paradox of our art, is the guard. It's the paradox. In a perfect world, if I had you on my Chris Haueter combat, the base camp island, or I had you chained up in my garage, and I trained you, I got you for 10 years. How am I going to train you? I might train you the first year, you're going to fight for top always. And I want to ingrain in your head that anytime you're on bottom, you died. Then I'm going to spend the next 6 years with pure guard, develop a guard. And the first 3 of those will be sweeps, getting back on top. And the second you're back on top, I'm putting you back on bottom. And you start in the closed guard and now get back on top. Then the last 3 subs. And then the last 2 years, you're going to put it all together and you have combat effective jiu-jitsu. But there's no such thing as a a perfect world. There's no such thing as a perfect way to train. What there is an environment and a martial art. And how are we going to adapt the martial art to create the proper experiments? Because I don't think always art, I think also sport, which I think of more as like science, is that blend between the art and the sport is the science of what we do. And we are trying to create experiments and find out what is the most effective way to do something as little as retain a grip on a lapel when your opponent is attempting to stand up out of the guard, or to retain a grip on that when your opponent is insisting on posture, or goes into whatever it is. And so each little micro thing is its own experiment and its own thing of coming up with what are the best ways. Now we throw in the variables: weight, size, strength, explosion, game style, youth, all of these things, experience, a belt level. And the more of these things is, we have chaos. So what is but jiu-jitsu? It's an attempt to make order out of chaos. And you cannot completely make that order, but you can find the patterns. And you can redirect the patterns. And that's the aliveness and the flowing of the game, is finding those patterns. If you're a half guard guy, you know that, but there are patterns and algorithms in which you work that half guard to force your opponent. I won't even say force your opponent. You force the game where your opponent has a couple choices. And when you reduce your opponent's options, you now can redirect and manipulate with the game, right? Isn't that?
That's absolutely accurate. That's 100% accurate.
That's the half guard game.
Yep.
Mike loves the half guard game, so he might be coming out to visit you, because I think you're hitting all his right spots right now.
The way that I heard it, I heard that Chris just invited me to live in his garage for 10 years. That's the way that I heard it. So I'll be out there. If I have to chain myself to the wall at night to kind of fit this,
you can do that.
This scenario, I'm okay with it. Yeah.
And if you get fat, I used to have an agreement
already there
with one of my black belts, and I had an agreement we made years ago. If one of us ever gets fat, you chain us up in the backyard where a long enough chain where we have garage access, and we eat nothing but lettuce, watermelon, and carrots until we're no longer fat. And you do not.
Mike just canceled his trip.
That's my.
Yeah, I know. I'm there. I'll bring my own carrots. I'm there.
You bring your own carrots, and we'll do it. No.
Are you training like through the pandemic? Like, if anybody follows you on social media or seeing any, you have that set up in your garage. So through the pandemic, and your wife is a 3rd degree black belt. So
my wife,
huge benefit. It's like,
and I will say, if it weren't for my man strength, my wife would tune me up. But technically, my wife kind of tunes me up. Where is my wife? Oh, what about the combat-based club?
We wanted to ask about the combat-based club.
It is really cool.
Yeah, well, we're trying to be more than just a subscription-based video channel thingamajigger. I really wanted my vision. It's all about me, of course.
Vision.
and I would love it to be our vision, and I should just pretend like it's our vision.
It is our vision.
Okay, good. It's our vision. Our vision is that we interact with people. So like we've been doing live Zoom classes where people can ask questions and jump on there, or people could do, virtual lessons with us and stuff like that. And that just, I don't feel like Chris is super into the whole virtual thing, but I think it's a good opportunity to connect with others. Like what we're doing right now, This is virtual. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So anybody, absolutely anybody, can sit down and have a conversation with Chris. It just might cost them some money. That's all.
Yeah.
You know. So so that's the thing, you know, and even
we are capitalists.
yeah. Well, we have to. The thing is we have to eat, right? We require things like food and shelter and
The
things
kids
like that.
have to eat.
And the kids have to eat, and you know, maybe one day go to college and things like that. And one day we might have to retire. So you know, so the Combat Base Club, born out of the global pandemic, is an opportunity to see us do videos. We have a growing video library. We have 3 different series that we're working on. We're going to add a 4th this next month. I'm really excited about it. There's not a ton of content on there, but it's a baby. You know, it's a baby that's growing, and anybody that joins us now gets to experience and watch this baby grow and maybe turn into a small child and things like that, and adolescent. But right now it's just a baby, and I have really big visions. I want to do a Combat Base Club comedy series. I think it would be amazing. I shouldn't even tell you guys. It should be a secret. It should be a secret.
Breaking news. Yeah,
This is a hot take for us.
We'll hold on to that. Top secret information.
Yeah, top secret. Don't tell anyone, because somebody will copy my idea and do it before we have a chance to. But I think that would be really fun.
Well, yeah, here's the thing too. It's like anyone out there in a jiu-jitsu land knows that a virus, global pandemic, but kind of hit our community hard. And
Absolutely.
Our income went from hero to zero.
Yep. I was also teaching supplemental education, which completely shut down as well in the school system. So between the school system thing and that and the jiu-jitsu thing, everything went bye-bye, and we got this idea for the club. It was born. You know, joining at the basic membership gives you all the video subscriptions and the virtual classes we do. I teach solo fitness training classes.
It's my favorite.
If you're by yourself, like, he loves it, but he doesn't love doing it. And then you get merchandise discounts, and we send you out a club membership certificate, and then there's different levels of membership. So I think it's really cool. It's combatbase.com, really easy to remember. Check out our site anyways, just to read the black belt profiles we have posted.
Even if you try it for just a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking at the website. I was checking out the website.
Same.
It looks like you have a lot of people who are collaborating with you. It's not just you guys on the site, right? There's other black belts on there.
All of those black belts are people who were promoted by Chris.
Oh.
So he's actually promoted about 70 black belts around the globe. I just haven't gotten all of them to, or they're ranked under him. So some people actually have come to us as black belts, and they received their degrees through Chris and stuff like that. But yeah, I haven't gotten them all to make the profiles. But then we do have several gyms. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but Chris has been teaching, like, we have like an unaffiliated affiliation. He's been promoting people at different schools around the globe forever. And it's just, we've never really had an affiliation, and nor do we really want one. So thus the whole idea of the club, because we want it to be more than like, we want it to be less controlling. Like, affiliation feels like I have to vow and pledge my allegiance to this flag. Right. And it's not like
talked
that.
About
Fly your own flag, bro. Fly your own flag.
Yeah.
You can keep your own school name.
You can
Right.
wear whatever you want to wear. You can be what you want to be, but you know.
I give a speech often.
Go ahead. You take
where
I don't know. I like this 2 guest thing. It's kind of nice having 2 guests. I mean,
yeah. I've taken the oath 3 times, and I only have allegiance to the United States Constitution, but to any man. I have an allegiance to law, not man, to ethics, not the people. I don't worship other human beings, and I don't like that structure. To me, it feels like fascism, and I've never liked that. So the combat-based club, you're not loyal to me or the club. I'm not.
You're a member.
You're just a member of the club.
We're all just members. I mean, yes, he's the one who, you know, legitimizes it through his legacy, but it's not like that. So we have a lot of students in Michigan and Oregon.
Yeah.
Wonder why.
I'm self-aware that I might be sending you off on a big tangent, but I'm obviously still going to ask it because I want to hear where this tangent goes, and then
I'll rein my tangent in.
That, you know what, we have you on to go on the tangents. You take us wherever you want, but we just talked about having a legacy. You've been training for so long. Obviously, jiu-jitsu as a sport has evolved greatly. Is there anything about that evolution that surprised you, that when you think back to the early days of training, you wouldn't have seen coming?
Gosh, that's
That's a deep one.
a deep one.
That's why I said I'm sending you on a
Because
tangent, I think.
it's a deep one. And before I even attempt to rack my brain and see if I can come up with something that back then and now, and I'm shocked, but because growth is so gradual, that I would say in many ways, if it has happened, I missed it because it's gradual. Kind of like, and I'm just going to throw this out there, it's like anything. Anything that evolves is usually gradual, and you can only see it when you look back at the big picture. But take the English language as an example. If you suddenly right now transported me back in time, or you, to England in the year 1296, you couldn't communicate with anyone speaking English there. You wouldn't understand them. They wouldn't understand you at all. You might be able to read a little bit, but not much. But go ahead 300 years and it's like 1600. You could kind of read it, but you still can't understand it being spoken. You go back even 100 years ago, and there are accents of English and idioms and little small subculture words that you have no idea what those words mean. So to use the analogy of martial arts, but jiu-jitsu being a language, it's a language. And as I opened with, we're now in a globalized world. So now that language is now a global language. And everybody is speaking kind of the same language. Whereas when I started, it was still very regional. It was even, you could even say that the Gracie style, there was the Haueter Gracie style, there was the Hoist Gracie style, there was the Hegan Machado who used to be called Hegan Gracie style, the Hickson Gracie style, and then there was the Americans with the wrestling influence and other stuff, and certain aspects of American culture, i.e. the open-mindedness, then the internet explosion. And so a lot of things have definitely affected and changed. And what I'm going to say, jiu-jitsu, it has certainly had a rapid period akin to a Cambrian explosion in evolution. And that basically occurred from about like 1992 to about 2002. That 10-year period was so rapid in growth, in new games, in Spider Guard, and Half Guard, and all these things, Alehiva Guard. Then these guards were even expanded upon even more, and these games even more, and the passing styles and all these things. And they branched off into the IBJJF rule set kind of sport, to the No points rule set kind of sport. MMA went its own way and added rules and all that. And we're kind of at what I'm going to call, it's probably the most fantastic age for martial arts or any knowledge-based thing ever. All because of this screen that we are sharing. We are at the dawn of an information revolution that makes the Gutenberg press. If we survive history, this will be the time.
I think that is a very good close. I will take that as a good stopping point and say thank you again so much for coming on the show and talking with us tonight. Like we said in the beginning, this was really exciting for us to have you on, so we appreciate it so much.
Yeah, this is we told you before, but we were really stoked for this, and it lived up to
what we hoped for.
And, yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
I have bored people to death.
No,
I don't think
no
so.
one cares about them.
Yeah, this show was just
great.
for us. We're not even worried about the audience. This show
Yeah.
was just for us more than anything. So I was definitely not bored to death. So thank you again.
All right, you guys, when you are out in LA, look me up and come to my garage.
We will be
Absolutely.
there for
We'll definitely
sure.
hit you up and train.
Thank you so much.
That.
Have a
Be
good night.
safe.
Thank you, sir.
You as well.
Out.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Again, a huge thanks to Chris Haueter for coming on and talking to us. If you want to follow him on Instagram, you can find him at Chris Haueter Art. He was also talking about his Combat Base Club. You can find that at combatbaseclub.com. And if you're looking for it on Instagram, it's just at Combat Base Club. We're going to put the links to our social media accounts below. So if you want to follow us individually or you want to follow the show, just give that a click and check it out as well.
Make sure you check out Epic Roll on Instagram at EpicRollBJJ and at the website epicrollbjj.com. Use our coupon code podcast15 to take 15% off your order. Say we're moving in Chris Haueter's garage.
Ooh, getting chained up in Haueter's garage.
He invited. It's happening. Good night, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us.
We're there. Thanks, guys.